Welcome to The Bridge, From Surviving to Thriving in Medical School, a medical student podcast on success and belonging at UCSF. My name is Erick Hung, and I'm a faculty member at the University of California School of Medicine and the Associate Dean for Students in the medical school. Thanks for listening in. We have really looked forward to producing this podcast series on medical student success. As part of an Academy of Medical Educators Innovations Funding and Education grant this year, it's been a privilege to have been a part of so many amazing conversations with faculty, students, staff, all of whom have made UCSF a very special place. We have heard their thoughts and advice on how to succeed and thrive in medical school. When we were planning the series, our podcast production team of students, residents, faculty, and staff realized that there are many forms to succeed. Success comes through finding and strengthening important relationships. Success comes through academic support and navigating through important transitions in school. Success comes through well-being and figuring out how personal and community toolkits for maintaining your values and managing stress are all really important. And also success comes through navigating careers in medicine with curiosity, purpose, and self-awareness. You'll find that each of our 11 episodes in this series is grounded in one of 4 themes centered on relationships, academic support, well-being, and career exploration. Each episode helps us learn a little bit more about that secret sauce of medical student success and belonging here, and we're really excited to have you listen in. For this welcome episode, I'd like us to meet our 2 incredible hosts who have each led different episodes throughout this series. Alvine Ngouonga is a third-year medical student at UCSF, although Alvine, when we started this process, you were a second year. And Nakai Corral is a second-year resident in psychiatry at UCSF. Alvine and Nakai, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have to say, between the 2 of you, you have had conversations with over 25 different guests throughout this series. And what I loved about what you did at the beginning of each of your episodes was to ask a couple of questions that were consistent. And so it's only fair for me to ask that same question to both of you as we get started. Alvine, if it's okay, I'm going to start with you. What is one thing you would like our listeners to know about you?
I think a big thing that I want listeners to know is that I am an eldest daughter of an immigrant household. I think that is something that shapes the way that I view community and my future and my path. And I think it also is what makes me like the yapper that I am.
That's awesome. And I am guessing that there's a lot of things in the School of Medicine that gives you joy. What is one thing that gives you joy in medical school?
One thing that gave me a lot of joy in the start of medical school, and that continues to give me joy as I see people, is being part of my SNMA community. SNMA was such a big part of medical school for me because I was the community engagement chair in the beginning, where I would plan community events with all the way from elementary school and middle school to college students, and also hosting a conference for students to learn about medicine and how they could get involved. And something that I really loved about being part of SNMA and having that role is the fact that I got to connect medical students back to their mission. I think in the start of medical school, you're not in clinic, you're in the class, and it can be really hard to remember why you're there and why you're remembering these pathways or learning the pathophysiology or looking at the pathology slides that you can't identify or understand. And having those little moments where we're actually in the community was a little reminder of like, no, these are the people that you're working so hard for. This is why you need to know the different types of anemias, so that you can one day serve your community. Now being in the hospital, I do get to serve people very directly, but that was a very nice moment at the start of med school.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Nakai, same questions for you. What is one thing that gives you joy in the School of Medicine and residency? And what is one thing that you would like our listeners to know about you?
I would say I'm just a guy who follows his heart. And I would recommend everyone do the same. I think that the term impulsivity gets a little bit of a bad rap. For me, I am here at UCSF in residency here, and ultimately, I think I've made it to this point in my life because I just like to do a bunch of random stuff and have really been able to find something ultimately that makes me happy. And I think it's pretty incredible that I get to go to work every day and do something that makes me happy. And then as far as the role in the School of Medicine that gives me joy, I really, really appreciate working with our patients, both at the San Francisco VA, the General Hospital, at UCSF, just incredible diversity of folks who come in and who really, really need our help. I can't help but think that being able to have found a career like medicine, like most of the people listening to this will likely know, being able to find a career that is concordant with your values is an absolute blessing. I can't emphasize that enough. The reality is a lot of people don't like their job, and you may not like your job even in medicine. I'm sure there's plenty of doctors that don't like their job. But I feel just so unbelievably blessed to be able to get up every morning and get paid to help people. Not that the money is important, but it is important. And so I think that just reflecting on my role in the School of Medicine, being able to work with students, being able to work with other residents, being able to work with our colleagues, especially at the VA, where we're working with psychologists and nurse practitioners and all these different folks, it's just really cool.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I'm struck by just how much you each have contributed as part of this process for us. You have honestly asked these amazing people doing amazing things, these amazing questions. And I just am in awe of everything that the two of you juggle. You are students, you are residents, you are clinicians, you are researchers, you are trying to pay all of what we learn forward. And just am so grateful for both of you to be hosts with us. I'm a little bit curious to ask each of you a little bit more about what your journeys have been like in medicine. I know that journey can be defined in lots of different ways, and so feel free to take this question however you'd like it. But what has the journey so far been like for you?
I can start since I think I'm the baby doctor in the room. I think I was always one of those people who knew, was like, I want to do medicine from like when I was pretty young, but I didn't really have a sense of obviously what that would look like or what that meant. It's just something that was kind of in the back of my mind. And when I got to college and I had to actually make that a reality, along with the pre-medical courses and the experience of just being a college student, one thing that kept striking me was how medicine was truly more social than science. It's obviously scientific, but it's also very social. You get to be part of patients' journey through the most vulnerable parts of their lives. And you're also getting to do such amazing intraprofessional work. And when I had that realization in college, it kind of led me into like, I think I want to do medicine, but I don't know how I want to do medicine, not from like a career perspective, but what type of doctor do I want to be and how do I want medicine to fit into my life or my life to fit medicine? A big reason that I'm here is just seeing my community in the US and also abroad. I'm Central African and seeing health disparities and how they play out and wanting to have an active role in shaping that in whatever way I can be of use. And also seeing how just fascinating it is to get to be in a job where I learn literally every day, which is kind of insane to think about that. Maybe it's possible because I'm a baby doctor. And so I see myself sort of waddling through the world like a toddler and be like, oh, new disease, new process, new way to do things. But that was a big process in my journey of like, I'm someone who's so curious, and this is a career path where I can learn every day. This is a place where I can have really important conversations with people about their health and help be a partner in their care. That's awesome. And then also something that I think will give me long-term fulfillment. And that was the process that I was thinking about in college and even in my gap years where I was a research coordinator. I even had a moment during the pandemic where I think we saw the world shifting so much. I had a moment of pause of like seeing the way medicine looks. Is this a place that I can still fit into? And is this a place that will not only accommodate for me where I can make change? I saw yes, I thought yes, and I'm still here. And I'm very happy with the process so far. Again, feel like I'm learning every day. Most of my rotations this year are at the VA actually. And so I get to actually take care of patients who have such complex challenges. And again, being part of their journey there has been awesome. So the baby doctor will continue learning. That's sort of how I see it.
Oh my gosh, I see you anything but a baby doctor right now. And Nakai, how about for you?
When I think about my journey of medicine and what's it looked like so far. I think the simplest way I can reflect upon my journey is to think back to high school and undergrad. I learned from a very early age. I worked the cash register at Del Taco for several years in high school, and very quickly picked up on the fact that I just enjoyed talking to random people and hearing their stories and understanding not only what kind of burrito, or Del Taco's case, they also had hamburgers, I believe, which was very odd for a Mexican restaurant. But I think that I realized very early on that I really enjoyed working with folks and hearing their stories and understanding where they were coming from. And very quickly in undergrad, I realized I also loved teaching and all the different pieces that came along with that. And so I ended up teaching for 3 years. I was a high school biology teacher in Baltimore. Got my master's degree in education and really kind of ran with that until I realized that I wanted to come back to medicine and find the opportunity to really get to work with folks who aren't doing well. And I think that for me, when I think about what medicine represents and the honor and the gift of medicine, it's this opportunity to meet people at their lowest points. And I felt like that was such a gift to be able to do that and to be able to be present with them and hold that space and try to offer them comfort when they oftentimes didn't have much of a reason to find that. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now as far as my journey. I don't know what comes next though.
Well, we're excited to see it. I'm still trying to picture you at Del Taco right now. So I am so glad that...
I'll send you a picture, Eric.
Yeah, I'm so glad that that path has led you to UCSF.
Yeah.
I will say, as a former podcast host, I did a series for residents and fellows on leadership. And I swore after that series that I would never, ever, ever be a host because I do not like listening to myself. And yet listening to the two of you and seeing what you have done in each of your episodes and the questions that you have asked and how you have really just enriched the conversation, you make it seem pretty effortless. And I'm guessing that the anxieties that you had at the start of this production were not necessarily the same anxieties and fears that you had as you were doing it. And so I'm just so curious to know, what things did you think about at the start that didn't end up materializing as you were interviewing each of our guests?
I think at the start, I was so worried about not having enough to say, which I find so silly now, considering how long some of our conversations ended up being. Okay, we have an idea of how we want this to go and not knowing where conversations were going to lead and how sometimes we were going to connect these broader ideas that we wanted to discuss within the episode. Honestly, after the first recording, I said, oh no, talking will actually not be our problem. We can do that. It's actually finding a way to wrap up and tie everything together at the end. That was the biggest challenge for me. Watching the clock and be like, okay, I think we've already touched a lot of these, but how do we tie this up in a nice bow?
Awesome. And Nakai, how about for you?
To be honest with you, I don't like scripts. And the more I reflect upon it, the more I realize that psychiatry is a really interesting exercise in being able to try to understand the root of what someone is getting at, especially as we learn like different psychotherapeutic modalities. And so what I tried to do at least was to get a sense of what the question was getting at and then listening as best I can. And so if there was something that I felt like wasn't being said, I was able to follow up with a question. But yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun, and I really appreciated the opportunity to hear from so many cool people.
Great. Alvine, I have a curiosity for you. So you did a number of episodes on relationships as well as well-being and really thinking about the ways that students can navigate the classroom and find strategies to be successful in school. I'm guessing that you had many conversations that stood out for you. What was one conversation that you wish you could have had a little bit longer?
I think about the conversation that I had with Lucy and Ernesto about, I think it was finding our mentorship team. I just got lost in that conversation. I forgot in some of our moments of like, oh, there are some points that you want to make sure that we're hitting just because they had so much to share. And it was such an interesting conversation with Lucy, who's already an attending, and Ernesto, who is an MD PhD student, and hearing their different perspective about how they found the people that supported them on their journey, what different mentors look like, how to hold yourself accountable when you are looking for mentors, and also how to hold your mentors accountable. Even in that conversation, we dived a little bit in the hierarchy of medicine. It's an interest of mine, so you see that sprinkled around the episodes that I did. But that one in particular, I thought that they had such amazing perspectives about how students can empower themselves and really take charge of their own learning and take charge of what it looks like to have the community that they want supporting them. That's one conversation that I wish I could have kept going. There are more. There are so many more, but that one comes to mind first.
I was trying to picture at the end of that episode where each of you are like having these huge grins, and we can't actually see it because we're not here in a recording studio, but you could like feel it in that episode. And that was so true. And Nakai, how about for you? You had conversations on well-being and academic support, particularly in the clinical learning environment, and then also a number of episodes around career exploration and navigating through the residency process, or just even thinking about broader careers in medicine. Were there any conversations that you would have liked to have for a little bit longer?
I love career exploration and the intrinsic psychoanalysis of it all. And I hope that these points came across during these conversations. But I really appreciated this emphasis that we seem to place on values and what you want for your life. Because residency is kind of brutal. It's a system that is unlike any other currently in the United States of America as far as what it expects of us, as far as quality of work and hours and all those things. So one piece, if I could parrot anything from that episode, is just really trying to look inwards and asking yourself what you want out of life, not what you think is going to look best on match day, not what you think is going to be the most impressive to your parents or to your community, but really think about what's going to make you happiest at the end of the day.
One other thing I was struck in listening to the episodes was that you also asked a similar question at the end of each episode around belonging. And I think the question went something like, what might our listeners do to foster belonging for others at UCSF? I was wondering if there were any unexpected answers or takeaways that you heard or that stuck out as you were listening to reflections on that particular question.
Yeah. One of our guests, I think this was Michael, he said something about leading with yourself. And in the conversation, he implied if you lead with yourself, you'll end up where you need to be, and you'll end up finding the people that you need to find. And I thought that was so beautiful to hear, because he's right. I think just like Nakai said about sometimes you do things for the external validation of it all, or feeling like you have to fit a certain role. But in the process of figuring out what you want to do with this career, you first need to know what you want, how you want to show up, and what you put out in the world is what you receive. So I think I definitely agree with him. If you lead with yourself and you show people the best version of yourself and who you are, if people enjoy that, they'll take you in. The specialties that love that personality, love what you have to offer, they're the ones that are going to pay attention to you. They're the ones who are going to give you opportunities, and you'll end up where you need to be. I thought that was really well said.
And Nakai, how about for you?
I certainly think that the individuals that we spoke to had a lot of the same sentiment as far as what it meant to foster belonging for others at UCSF and reaching out and looking out, certainly as it pertains to the career exploration piece and making sure that you end up in the right residency or whatever that may be. But I do also think this idea of being yourself, and also if you want to change something, if you want to do something, you should do it. Don't wait for others to do it for you.
Well, we're really excited to be able to hear this series with the two of you. Again, thank you so much for being our brave and fearless hosts in this series. And so I do have the same final question for you as you asked your guests in your episodes. What might our listeners do to foster belonging for others at UCSF? Nakai, do you want to start?
Sure. One of my co-residents the other day told me, she said, I wish we had more happy hours. And I remember kind of smiling at her. And I said, you too can plan a happy hour. And I'm not saying that you have to have happy hours to foster belonging for others at UCSF, but the point of it being, if you want something, if you want to change something about this institution, if you want to create a better, more rich community, if you want to create more involvement and appreciation for your co-medical students or co-residents, you can and you should. Ultimately, I want you to listen to your heart, step out of your comfort zone, try new things. Always say yes is something that I have tried to lean into a lot recently. But definitely don't limit yourself by the expectations of others. And just, if you want to change something, you should just change it. A lot of people will appreciate it.
So much wisdom there. And Alvine?
It doesn't really take that much. You can start really small by little ways that you can rehumanize people in medicine. By, for example, saying hi to people that you've never met before. In my third year, I'm at the end of my surgery rotation. And I noticed in the beginning that we are so set in our little roles in medicine of like, I do this, I do that. Here are the people in the OR that do this. And it's so weird to me because in every other facet of society, you don't operate the way that you do in the hospital. And so for me, it's like, you know what? I enter the operating room, I see all the nurses, I'm going to say hi. And by the end of the rotation, some of the nurses were like such great community for me. And if I was struggling at something, they would notice and help me out. If during the OR I'm scrubbed in and I'm not doing anything, they hand me a needle driver to practice on the side. Or they even pull me aside and they give me teaching during a case if I don't understand what's going on. But if I didn't take the initiative in the very beginning to at least break that distance that already exists between us, I wouldn't have those opportunities. And I think that's a big goal of myself throughout this year in the hospital and through the rest of my career, remembering to humanize people, remembering to just say hi, ask how people are doing, connect with people in the small ways that will actually help melt the ice or remind people that, yes, this is a clinical space, but we can still talk about the shoes that we bought from Ross this weekend. And that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Nakai, Alvine, again, thank you for being our host for this series. And for everyone joining in and listening in, we want to welcome you to the series. And we hope you learn something and take away something on how to succeed and thrive in medical school. Take care. Thank you for listening to The Bridge, and please look for more episodes in our series. The Bridge is brought to you by the UCSF Academy of Medical Educators Innovations for Funding in Education program. Our hosts are Alvine Ngouonga and Dr. Nakai Corral. Our production staff are Dr. Erick Hung and Valerie Jones. Our sound engineer is John Oliver. Our music is by Duke Hugh, Wax Roof, Mabanwa, and Les Imprimes, courtesy of Big Crown Records.